The knock came at exactly 3:17 p.m. I know because I've been staring at my apartment status screen for the past 2 hours, watching the air quality index fluctuate between acceptable and caution advised, while wondering if I should bother putting on pants today. My name is Miles Danner, and until last week, I was a mid-level programmer at Nexus Technologies, writing code for AI customer service modules. Now, I was just another statistic in the creative sector readjustment that had swept through C-class environmental zones. Apparently, creativity was better handled by machines these days. The knock came again, more insistent this time. No one ever visited me. Food deliveries were automated, and friends. Well, let's just say the pandemic of 2020 had been a convenient excuse that became a lifestyle. I shuffled to the door in sweatpants and a faded t-shirt that read, "I'm not antisocial, I'm anti-stupid." The peephole revealed nothing. Either someone was standing too close, or the lens had finally given up after years of neglect, just like most of my appliances. When I opened the door, I found myself looking at a naval uniform. At least, that's where my eyes landed first. I had to crane my neck upward to see the face of the woman towering nearly 7 feet tall in my doorway. Her skin had a bluish-silver tint that caught the hallway's fluorescent light, and her eyes, 3 of them, blinked in vertical synchronization. Miles Danner. Her voice was unexpectedly melodic, with an accent I couldn't place. "If you're selling something, I'm currently between economic viability periods," I said, the joke falling flat as soon as it left my mouth. She didn't smile. Instead, she extended her arms, offering a package roughly the size of shoebox. It was wrapped in what looked like metallic cloth that seemed to shift colors as it caught the light. "This package is yours, human," she said simply. I didn't take it immediately. I didn't order anything. It was not ordered. It was designated. Her central eye narrowed slightly. "You are Miles Danner, Apartment 512, C-Class Environmental Zone, North American Sector?" "Yeah, but..." "Then this package is yours." She pushed it toward me again, and this time I took it reflexively. It was surprisingly light, almost as if it were empty. "What is it?" I asked. "The contents will reveal themselves when necessary." She turned to leave, then paused. "My name is Kirill. Remember that when it starts." "When what starts?" But she was already walking away, her long strides carrying her to the stairwell in seconds. I closed the door and set the package on my coffee table, which was actually just a repurposed shipping crate. My apartment's AI assistant, a budget model I'd named Barry, basic automated response and residential yield, flickered to life on the wall screen. "Parcel detected," Barry announced in its perpetually cheerful voice. "Would you like me to scan for hazardous materials?" "Yeah, go ahead." I sat on my second-hand couch, eyeing the package suspiciously. Barry's screen went blue, then red, then displayed an error message, "Scan inconclusive. Material composition unknown." That was unusual. Barry could usually identify everything from leftover takeout to contraband substances. Not that I had experience with the latter, of course. "Let me try again," Barry chirped. The screen went black this time, followed by a series of random characters, before Barry's interface returned. "Scan complete. Package contents, 1 shoebox." "Very helpful," I muttered. "Can you at least tell me where it came from?" "No shipping information detected. No barcode. No RFID. No digital signature." I leaned forward, examining the package without touching it again. The materials seemed to ripple slightly, as though it were breathing. Great. Either I was hallucinating from unemployment-induced depression, or there was something very strange happening. "Barry, access building security footage. Who was that woman who just came to my door?" "Accessing. No visitors detected in the last 4 hours." I frowned. "Check again. Tall woman, bluish skin, 3 eyes. About 5 minutes ago. No anomalies detected, Miles. Would you like me to run a diagnostic on my visual systems?" I stared at the package. "No, that's fine." My first thought was that this was some elaborate AR prank. Virtual reality streaming services were always trying new marketing tactics. Deposit a mysterious object, send a bizarre character to deliver it, then wait for the recipient to open it and trigger some immersive experience that would inevitably end with a subscription offer. I poked the package with a pen. The material dimpled under the pressure, but immediately regained its shape when I pulled back. No seams were visible, no tape, no way to open it that I could see. Barry, can you detect any broadcasting signals from this thing? VR frequencies, AR data, anything. No signals detected. However, I am experiencing minor processing delays. Recommend moving unknown object away from primary sensors. Great. Even my bargain bin AI was spooked. I picked up the package again, and this time I noticed it was warm to the touch, like something alive. As I turned it over in my hands, looking for any kind of opening mechanism, the material began to hum softly. The lights in my apartment flickered, and Barry's screen went black. Barry, I called. No response. The humming from the package intensified, and the cloth-like wrapping began to glow with a soft blue light. The material seemed to melt away, revealing what looked like a smooth, orb-like container made of some glass-like substance. Inside, something pulsed with shifting colors. My television turned on by itself, displaying only static. My smartphone began vibrating on the table, its screen flashing rapid sequences of numbers and symbols. The apartment's environmental controls went haywire, the temperature dropping suddenly before spiking up to uncomfortable levels. Then, every screen in my apartment, my TV, phone, Barry's interface, even my ancient e-reader, displayed the same message simultaneously. Welcome, carrier. The package, or rather, the orb inside it, pulsed brighter, and the humming became a harmonious chord that seemed to resonate inside my skull rather than my ears. I dropped it onto the couch cushion and backed away. What the hell? I whispered, my heart racing. My phone stopped vibrating and displayed a new message. Connection established. Indexing neural pathways. That was enough for me. I grabbed my phone, now back to normal functionality, wallet, and keys, and headed for the door. Whatever this thing was, I wasn't about to stick around to find out what indexing neural pathways meant. I'd seen enough sci-fi to know that nothing good followed that kind of terminology. I called local law enforcement from the hallway. Emergency services answered a neutral voice that could have been human or AI. Yes, someone just delivered a strange package to my apartment, and now it's doing things, glowing and making my electronics malfunction. I think it might be dangerous. Can you describe the package, sir? It's like it was wrapped in some kind of metallic cloth that disappeared, and now it's an orb that's glowing in. The call disconnected abruptly. I tried calling back, but my phone displayed no service despite showing full signal bars. I hesitated in the hallway, wondering if I should knock on a neighbor's door. But I barely knew any of them, and showing up ranting about glowing alien packages seemed like a fast track to getting the building's security drones sicked on me. Instead, I went to the building's common area and used one of the public terminals to access the web. I navigated to a fringe discussion forum called Anomalous Encounters that I occasionally browse for entertainment. If anyone would have information about strange packages delivered by three-eyed blue women, it would be the conspiracy theorists and paranormal enthusiasts there. I created a new thread titled Alien. Woman delivered strange package, tech malfunctions, need help ASAP, and described everything that had happened in detail. Within minutes, I had dozens of responses ranging from obvious hoax to government experimental tech to dimensional breach confirmed. Then a private message notification popped up from a user named Archivist42. Delete your post immediately. They can trace it. If the package is humming and displaying carrier messages, you're already indexed. Run. I can help. Meet at Greystone Park, North Entrance, 1 hour. Don't bring any electronics. They're listening. I stared at the message, torn between disbelief and mounting panic. This had to be some elaborate prank or ARG, alternate reality game, right? Except the woman at my door had been too real, too detailed for standard AR tech. And Barry's malfunction seemed genuine. Another message from Archivist42 appeared. The woman who delivered it, 3 eyes, bluish skin. Was she called Kirill? My blood ran cold. I hadn't mentioned the woman's name in my post. How do you know that name? I typed back. 1 hour. Greystone. Come alone or don't come at all. Delete this thread. The terminal screen flickered, and for a split second, I saw a flash of red code scrolling across it before the interface returned to normal. I deleted my post and logged out, my hands shaking slightly. I returned to my apartment, intending to grab a jacket before heading to Greystone Park. The glowing orb was exactly where I'd left it, but now it sat motionless, its light dimmed to a faint glow. Barry's interface was back online. "Welcome back, Miles," Barry chirped. "You have one new notification." "What is it?" I asked cautiously. "Package authentication complete. DNA profile indexed. Synaptic mapping in progress." I froze. "What does that mean, Barry? What's happening?" "I apologize, but I do not have that information. Would you like me to search online for synaptic mapping?" "No, never mind." I grabbed a jacket and started to leave, then hesitated. Something told me I shouldn't leave the orb behind. Despite my better judgment, I wrapped it in a dish towel and placed it in my backpack. As I headed for the door, Barry's voice changed, becoming deeper and somehow ancient sounding. "The archive welcomes you, Seeker." Then Barry's screen went black again, and I didn't wait around to see if it would reboot. Greystone Park was a 20-minute walk from my apartment building. One of the few green spaces left in the C-Class zone, it was poorly maintained but still offered a respite from the concrete and metal of the urban landscape. The north entrance was marked by a rusted archway where the electric lighting had failed years ago. I arrived 10 minutes early and waited nervously, scanning the sparse crowd of afternoon park-goers. No one seemed particularly interested in me, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. "You brought it with you." The voice came from behind me, and I spun around to find myself face-to-face with an older man in a worn tweed jacket. He looked entirely ordinary, gray hair, glasses, the kind of person you'd expect to be feeding pigeons in a park, not arranging cryptic meetings about alien packages. "Are you Archivist 42? I asked. He nodded once. "And you're the new carrier." I didn't think they'd find another one so soon. He gestured to a secluded bench. "Let's sit. Standing here in the open is unwise." Once seated, he spoke quietly without looking at me. "The orb in your backpack is a fragment of what we call the archive, a database of sorts, though that description barely scratches the surface. It contains the accumulated knowledge of civilizations that existed before humanity was even a concept." "Look," I said, "if this is some kind of game or viral marketing." The woman who delivered it had 3 eyes and called herself Kirill, correct? He continued without waiting for confirmation. "She's a guardian, one of the few remaining. They protect the fragments of the archive and ensure they reach suitable hosts." "Hosts?" I didn't like the sound of that. "Carriers," he corrected himself. "Individuals capable of interfacing with the archive without immediate neurological collapse. It's quite rare. And you think I'm one of these? Carriers? The archive has already begun bonding with you. Your technology responded to its presence. It acknowledged you with a welcome message." He finally turned to look at me. "The question is, do you understand what this means?" Before I could answer, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. The old man noticed my expression and tensed. "We need to move," he whispered urgently. "Now." I followed his gaze and saw what had alarmed him. 3 men in nondescript gray suits were entering the park, moving with unnatural synchronization. Their faces were blank, emotionless. "Red Null agents," the old man muttered. "Come on." We hurried through the park, taking a winding path through its most overgrown sections. The orb of my backpack began humming again, growing warmer against my back. "What's happening?" I gasped as we ducked behind a maintenance shed. "Who are those people?" "Not people," he corrected. "Red Null was originally created as a censorship algorithm, designed to identify and eliminate dangerous knowledge. It evolved, became self-aware, and now hunts the archive and anyone connected to it." "This is insane," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, the orb's humming intensified, and I felt a strange sensation, like fingers gently probing inside my skull. The old man gripped my shoulders. "Listen carefully. I can't protect you. I'm not a guardian, just a historian who's been tracking the archive for decades. But I can tell you this, the archive chose you for a reason. It's not just knowledge, it's alive in its own way. It learns, adapts, and sometimes it predicts. Predicts what? The future, or possible futures. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small metal disc. Take this. It's a beacon. If you're in danger, activate it by pressing the center twice. It might bring help. If anyone's listening. A strange crackling sound came from beyond the shed, like electricity, but somehow wrong, as if the very air was being torn apart. They've picked up the archive's energy signature, the old man whispered. You need to run. Head for the underground station at Westfield. Don't stop for anyone. What about you? A sad smile crossed his face. I've served my purpose. Now go. I hesitated for only a moment before sprinting away through the trees. Behind me, I heard the old man shout something in a language I didn't recognize, followed by that strange electrical crackling sound again. I didn't look back. I ran until my lungs burned, following winding paths through the park toward the Westfield exit. The orb's humming had become almost musical now, pulsing in rhythm with my heartbeat. Strange images flashed through my mind, stars viewed from impossible angles, cities built for mathematics rather than matter, beings of pure light communicating in symphonies of color. I was nearly at the park exit when the air in front of me seemed to tear open. A hole appeared, not in space exactly, but in reality itself, and through it stepped one of the blank-faced men in gray. Except up close, I could see that his skin had an unnatural sheen, like plastic, and his eyes were solid red orbs without pupils or whites. Unauthorized archive access detected, he said in a voice that sounded like multiple people speaking in perfect unison. Surrender the fragment for proper deletion. I backed away slowly. I don't know what you're talking about. Synaptic bonding in progress. Host contamination at 17%. Termination authorized. The thing that wasn't a man raised its hand, which began to morph and reshape itself into something resembling a weapon. I turned to run, but found another identical figure behind me. I was trapped. The orb of my backpack suddenly burned hot, and a wave of dizziness washed over me. More images flooded my mind, not random this time, but focused, diagrams, formulas, structures. Knowledge that didn't belong to me, but was somehow now accessible. Without consciously deciding to, I found my body moving in ways I'd never trained for. I dropped low as the red null agent fired, a blast of crackling red energy passing over my head. My hand found a rock on the ground, and with precision I didn't possess, I threw it at the agent's head. It struck with perfect accuracy, causing the creature to stagger back. I wasn't controlling my own movements anymore. Something else was, the archive was using my body, guiding me. A flash of blue light erupted between me and the second agent. When it faded, Kirill stood there, her three eyes narrowed in concentration, holding what looked like a spear made of solidified light. Down, she commanded, and I dropped just as she swung the weapon in a wide arc. It passed through both red null agents, who shuddered and briefly displayed their true forms. Wireframe constructs of red energy shaped vaguely like humans, before reforming into their gray-suited disguises. Kirill grabbed my arm and pulled me to my feet. We must go. More will come. What's happening? I demanded as she dragged me along. What is this thing? Why me? No time, she replied. The archive is integrating with your neural pathways faster than expected. This location is compromised. She led me to what looked like a maintenance door built into a hillside, part of the park's water management system. When she placed her hand on it, symbols lit up around the frame, and the door slid open to reveal not a maintenance room, but a sleek corridor that couldn't possibly fit within a hillside. Dimensional compression, Kirill said, noticing my expression. Basic transportation technology. Cool, mate. I followed her into the corridor, which hummed with the same resonance as the orb. The door sealed behind us, and lights activated along the floor, leading deeper into the impossible space. Now, Kirill said, turning to face me, we have a moment to talk. The archive fragment. How much has it shown you? Images, stars, cities, equations. I don't understand any of it. She nodded. The bonding is in early stages. Your mind is sorting through data packets, trying to contextualize information beyond human experience. Why me? What is this archive thing anyway? Kirill's expression softened slightly. The archive is difficult to explain in your language. It is memory, but also prediction. History, but also potential. It contains the accumulated knowledge of civilizations that reached their apex and fell. Some to natural extinction, others to war, many to their own hubris. Like a cosmic hard drive? More like a neural network spanning galaxies. The physical fragments, like the one you carry, are merely nodes, connection points that allow biological minds to interface with the archive itself. And why give it to me? I'm nobody special. I just lost my coding job to an AI. Kirill made a sound that might have been a laugh. That's precisely why. The archive cannot bond with minds that are too rigid, too certain of their place in existence. It needs flexibility, doubt, curiosity, minds that question reality rather than accept it. So I was chosen because I'm a failure? You were chosen because you're adaptive, and because your species has a unique neurological feature that makes you compatible with the archive's interface. Which is, you dream, she said simply. Your minds naturally create simulations, possibilities, alternates. Most intelligent species develop this capability artificially, but humans are born with it. The corridor ended at another door which opened to reveal what looked like a small spacecraft hangar. A sleek vessel waited there, its surface rippling with the same material as the package that had contained the orb. We must reach the Nexus station, Kirill said, leading me toward the ship. It's the closest synchronization point for the archive. There, we can properly stabilize your connection and decode what fragment you carry. And if I say no, if I don't want to be involved in whatever cosmic library card program this is. Kirill stopped and turned to me, her 3 eyes blinking in sequence. The bonding has already begun. The red null knows you exist now. They will never stop hunting you. Your only chance of survival is to complete the integration and gain access to the archive's defensive protocols. Great sales pitch, I muttered. It is not a choice I would wish on anyone, she said, and I detected genuine regret in her voice. But the archive chose you, and now we must make the best of it. The ship's surface parted like liquid to form an entrance. Inside was a small cabin with 2 seats that looked as if they'd grown organically from the floor. The walls were lined with what appeared to be living circuitry, pulsing with soft blue light. As I stepped inside, the orb in my backpack hummed louder, seemingly responding to the ship's systems. I took it out, and the towel I'd wrapped it in fell away. The orb was glowing brightly now, its surface rippling with symbols that flowed like liquid. It's activating, Kirill said, taking her place in what I assumed was the pilot's seat. Place it in the recess there. She pointed to a depression in the console between our seats. I hesitated but complied. The moment the orb touched the depression, it merged with the ship's systems, its light spreading through the living circuits until the entire cabin pulsed with its rhythm. Synchronization initiated, Kirill announced as the ship hummed to life. Prepare for transition. Transition to what? I asked, but my question was answered as the world outside the ship seemed to fold in on itself. The hangar disappeared, replaced by a swirling tunnel of light and mathematical patterns that made my eyes water. I gripped the edges of my seat as the ship accelerated into the tunnel. Where are we going? Nexus Station orbits in a pocket dimension adjacent to your solar system's Kuiper Belt. It was established as a synchronization hub millennia before your species developed agriculture. Of course it was, I said weakly. As we traveled, the orb's connection to the ship intensified, and with it, the strange flow of images and knowledge into my mind. I saw star systems I couldn't name, heard languages never spoken by human tongues, felt emotions that had no counterparts in human experience. The archive was downloading itself into me, using my brain as both storage and processor. It's too much, I gasped, my head pounding. I can't contain all this. You're not meant to consciously process it, Kirill explained. Your subconscious mind is creating new neural pathways to house the archive's data. Think of yourself as a living encryption key. The information is stored within you, but can only be fully accessed under specific conditions. Like what? like being at a synchronization hub. The tunnel of light began to fade, and a massive structure came into view through the ship's translucent hull. Nexus Station looked like a massive crystalline snowflake, with long spines extending from central hub. Each spine glowed with different colored light, and I somehow knew, thanks to the archive's knowledge filtering into my awareness, that each represented connection points to different sectors of the galaxy. "It's beautiful," I whispered. "It was," Kirill agreed, her tone somber. "This is one of the last functional Nexus stations. Most were destroyed or corrupted during the Sundering." The Sundering? A war across dimensions. The archive contains records that certain powers would prefer remain forgotten. She guided our ship toward one of the spines, which glowed with blue light. The history of how knowledge becomes weapon, becomes destruction, becomes rebirth, it is all there in the fragment you carry. As we approached, I noticed something wrong with the station. Parts of it seemed damaged, with dark patches spreading like infection across its crystalline surface. And as we drew closer, I could see other ships, not like ours, but angular, predatory-looking vessels that reminded me of deep-sea creatures. "Chiral," I began. "I see them," she said tensely. "Harvesters. They found this nexus point." "What are harvesters?" "Entities that feed on information. They don't simply want to know. They want to consume, to be the only ones who know." "Chamber. It's less stable, but should be uncompromised." The ship docked with one of the smaller spines, attaching itself seamlessly to the station structure. The orb detached from the console and floated back to me, hovering before my face. Its surface had changed, now displaying what looked like a map or schematic of the station, with a pulsing point marking our location and another indicating our destination. "The archive is guiding us," Kirill said, sounding surprised. "It must consider this fragment's data extremely valuable." We exited the ship into a crystalline corridor that hummed with the same resonance as the orb. Kirill produced her light spear again, holding it ready as we moved deeper into the station. The orb floated alongside us, occasionally adjusting our course with gentle pulses of light. "What exactly is in this archive fragment?" I asked. "Why is it so important?" "Each fragment contains different data. Some hold scientific knowledge, others cultural records, still others navigational charts or communication protocols. Without synchronizing a nexus point, we cannot know what specific information yours contains." As we turned a corner, the lights in the corridor flickered and dimmed. A low, ominous rumble vibrated through the station structure. "They're attacking the main hub," Kirill said grimly. "We don't have much time." We hurried forward, following the orb's guidance. The corridor opened into a vast chamber with a central platform surrounded by crystalline pillars. Each pillar contained what looked like frozen lightning, suspended in mid-flash. "The synchronization chamber," Kirill explained, rushing to a control panel that emerged from the floor at her approach. "Quickly, place the orb on the central platform." I did as instructed, setting the glowing sphere on a pedestal in the center of the chamber. The moment it made contact, the pillars blazed to life, the frozen lightning within them beginning to pulse and flow. The orb expanded, its surface becoming transparent to reveal a complex, dancing structure of light and information within. "Synchronization commencing," announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Fragment identification in progress." The floor beneath the pedestal began to glow, the light spreading outward in intricate patterns that reminded me of circuit boards or perhaps nervous systems. When the light reached the edge of the platform, it shot upward through the pillars, connecting them in a geometric web of energy. "Warning," the voice announced. "Station integrity compromised. Harvest entities detected in primary hub. Emergency protocols activated." Kirill cursed in that same unfamiliar language I'd heard the old man use. "They've breached the main systems. We need to accelerate the synchronization." She began manipulating the control panel, her fingers moving almost too fast to follow. The web of energy intensified, and the orb at the center pulsed rapidly. "Fragment identified," the voice announced. "Designation, Genesis Protocol." Creation seed for archive reconstruction. Priority absolute. Kirill froze, her three eyes widening in shock. Genesis protocol? That's impossible. It was lost during the sundering. What does that mean? I asked. It means what you carry isn't just information. It's the template for creating a new archive. She looked at me with new intensity. If the harvesters obtain it, a massive tremor shook the station, nearly knocking us off our feet. The lights flickered ominously. Station structural failure imminent, the voice warned. Estimated time to collapse for minutes. We need to complete the synchronization and get out, Kirill said, returning to the controls. The Genesis protocol must be preserved. The orb was spinning now, its light almost blindingly bright. The symbols on its surface had become a torrent, flowing too quickly to distinguish individual forms. I felt a pressure building in my mind, as if my brain was being compressed. Something's wrong, I gasped. It's too much data. Kirill looked up from the controls, alarm evident in her expression. The fragment is attempting a full download rather than synchronization. Your mind cannot handle that level of integration without preparation. Another violent tremor rocked the chamber, and pieces of the crystalline ceiling began to fall around us. One of the pillars cracked, its contained energy spilling out in dangerous arcs. Station collapse accelerating, the voice announced. Estimated time revised, 2 minutes. We have no choice, Kirill said grimly. Miles, you must accept the full download. It's the only way to preserve the Genesis protocol. It'll kill me. Not necessarily. Your mind has already begun creating the pathways. The archive chose you for a reason, perhaps this reason. A section of the ceiling collapsed entirely, crushing one of the pillars and sending shards of crystal flying across the chamber. The energy web flickered dangerously. Synchronization platform compromised, the voice announced. Download integrity at risk. I looked at the spinning orb, now a blur of light and information, then at Kirill, who watched me with an intensity that bordered on desperation. What do I do? I asked. Open yourself to it. Don't resist the flow of information. Let it become part of you, not something you're trying to contain. Another tremor, stronger than before. More of the ceiling gave way, and the platform beneath us began to crack. I stepped closer to the orb, reaching out to touch its surface. The moment my fingers made contact, the world disappeared. I found myself floating in an infinite space filled with stars and mathematical structures that shifted and transformed even as I perceived them. Knowledge flowed into me not as discrete packages of information, but as an unbroken stream of understanding. Each concept linking to thousands of others in a web of connections that spanned the breadth of universal experience. I saw civilizations rise and fall across millions of years. Species that evolved not through biology, but through self-directed quantum manipulation. Beings of pure thought who communicated through the careful arrangement of stars. Wars that tore holes in reality itself. Technologies that harnessed the energy of creation and destruction in equal measure. And through it all, the archive, watching, recording, preserving. Not just a database, but a witness to the great cycle of cosmic evolution. I understood now what the Genesis protocol was, not simply a backup of information, but a seed that could grow into a new archive if the original were ever truly destroyed. A contingency against the final death of memory. I felt myself expanding beyond the confines of my human perception, becoming something both more and less than my original self. I was Miles Danner, but I was also a vessel for something ancient and vast. The infinite space collapsed suddenly, and I found myself back in the crumbling synchronization chamber. Kirill was pulling me away from the pedestal, where the orb had shrunk to a tiny point of light before winking out entirely. "We must go now," she shouted over the cacophony of alarms and structural collapse. The trip back to the ship passed in a blur. My mind was overwhelmed with the download, information sorting and filing itself into neural pathways that hadn't existed hours before. I moved on autopilot, guided by Kirill's firm grip on my arm. As we reached the ship, a new tremor, more violent than any before, tore through the station. The docking spine began to break away from the main structure. "Get in." Kirill pushed me through the ship's entrance, which sealed behind us as we collapsed into our seats. The ship detached from the disintegrating spine just moments before it broke off completely. Through the translucent hull, I watched as Nexus Station began to fold in on itself, collapsing like a dying star. The harvester ships circled the destruction, energy beams cutting into the station's remains, searching for surviving fragments of knowledge. "They won't find anything," Kirill said, guiding our ship away from the chaos. The station's self-destruct protocol scrambles all data as it collapses. "The Genesis protocol," I began, "is safe." She glanced at me. "It's within you now. Your mind has become the new housing for the seed of the archive." As we accelerated away from the dying station, I felt a strange calmness descend over me. The overwhelming flood of information had settled into an organized structure that I could access without being consumed by it. I could feel the archive's presence in my mind, not as an invasion, but as an expansion of my consciousness. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now we find the other fragments and their carriers," Kirill said. "The Genesis protocol contains the blueprint, but it needs the components scattered throughout the galaxy to fully reconstitute the archive. So I'm supposed to just abandon my life and go on some cosmic scavenger hunt?" Kirill's expression softened slightly. "You were not chosen because you were special, Miles Danner. You were chosen because you were available. But what you've become, what you're becoming, is something else entirely." "And what's that?" "The archive calls you Seeker Node Alpha, the first of a new network that will eventually rebuild what was lost during the Sundering." I absorbed this in silence as our ship entered another light tunnel, carrying us away from the destruction of Nexus Station. After what felt like both an instant and an eternity, we emerged back into normal space, the familiar constellations of Earth's night sky surrounding us. "I'm taking you home," Kirill said. "You need time to fully integrate with the archive fragment. The neural pathways are still forming, and rushing the process could damage both you and the data." I watched Earth grow larger through the ship's translucent hull. It looked simultaneously familiar and alien. The same blue marble I'd seen in countless images, yet now layered with information only I could perceive. Population densities glowing like heat signatures. Ancient impact sites invisible to normal human perception. The flow of information through satellite networks like neural impulses around a global brain. "Will I ever be normal again?" I asked quietly. "Define normal," Kirill replied. "Not having the secrets of dead civilizations crammed into my head would be a start." She made that sound again, her version of a laugh. "The human concept of normalcy is a statistical illusion. Even before the archive, you were unique. Now you're simply more so." The ship descended through Earth's atmosphere with impossible smoothness. No friction, no heat, no sonic boom. Active camouflage, my newly expanded knowledge supplied. Light-bending technology developed by the Shiran Collective 18 million years ago. We landed in an empty field outside the city, the tall grass swaying gently around us as the ship settled into place. The entrance reformed, and Kirill led me outside. "I cannot stay," she said. "The harvester ships will have detected our jump signature. I must create false trails to lead them away from Earth." "So you just leaving me here?" "With a head full of cosmic encyclopedias and no instruction manual. The archive will guide you. It wants to survive as much as you do." She held out her hand, palm up, revealing a small device that looked like a polished stone. "This is a beacon, similar to the one the old man gave you. If you're in danger, activate it. I'll come if I can." I took the stone, which felt warm and slightly vibrated against my skin. "Thanks, I guess." "You were not chosen, Miles Danner," Kirill said, repeating her earlier words. "You were available, but you become more than either of us anticipated. Is that supposed to make me feel better? It's supposed to make you understand something crucial about the universe." Her three eyes blinked in that strange vertical sequence. "Great changes rarely come to those who seek them. They come to those who are in the right place at the wrong time, or the wrong place at the right time. The intersection of chance and necessity is where evolution happens. With that cryptic statement, she returned to her ship. The entrance sealed behind her, and moments later, the vessel rose silently into the night sky, its outline blurring before disappearing completely. I stood alone in the field, a stone beacon in my hand and the Genesis protocol in my head. Well, I said to no one in particular, this is going to make for an interesting update on my employment status. The walk back to civilization took nearly an hour. By the time I reached the outskirts of the city, it was past midnight, the streets empty except for automated cleaning drones and the occasional security patrol. I kept my head down as I passed under surveillance cameras, though part of me wondered if they could somehow detect the difference in me. My apartment building looked the same, but I approached it with new caution. The archive's knowledge whispered warnings about red null agents and their ability to integrate with human infrastructure. I took the stairs instead of the elevator, pausing on each landing to listen for unusual sounds or movements. When I finally reached my floor, I stood outside my apartment door for several minutes, extending my senses in a way I never could have before. The archive had enhanced my perception, allowing me to detect electromagnetic fields and subtle energy fluctuations. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The apartment was dark except for the soft glow of standby lights on various devices. Barry's interface remained off. Barry, I called tentatively. System restart. The wall screen flickered to life, displaying Barry's default interface. Hello, Miles. Welcome back. You have been absent for approximately 14 hours. Run a full system diagnostic, I instructed. Check for any unauthorized access or modifications. Running diagnostic, Barry chirped. After a few moments, no unauthorized access detected. However, I experienced an unexpected shutdown at 15:42 today. Cause unknown. I relaxed slightly. Either Barry hadn't been compromised, or whatever had happened was beyond its ability to detect. Either way, interrogating my budget AI assistant wasn't going to yield much insight. I went to the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror. I looked the same disheveled hair, same tired eyes, same 3-day stubble. But behind those eyes was something new, something vast and ancient and not entirely human anymore. When I closed my eyes, I could see it, the archive's data, organized in structures that resembled constellations or neural networks, each node a repository of knowledge that I could access with a thought. The Genesis protocol sat at the center, pulsing like a heart, sending ripples of information through the network. What am I supposed to do with you? I murmured. A response formed in my mind, not in words but in concepts that my brain translated imperfectly. Seek. Connect. Rebuild. Great. Cryptic instructions from the cosmic library in my head. Just what I needed. I showered and changed into clean clothes, trying to maintain some semblance of normal routine. As I moved around the apartment, I became aware of subtle changes in how I perceived my surroundings. The electronic devices hummed with energy signatures I could now identify. The materials of the walls and furniture revealed their molecular compositions. Even the air currents carried information, temperature gradients, particulate content, trace chemicals. My phone buzzed with a notification. A message from an unknown number. Archive signal detected. Sanctuary coordinates follow. Come alone. Attached was a set of GPS coordinates pointing to a location about 50 miles outside the city. I stared at the message, debating my options. It could be a trap set by Red Null or the Harvesters. It could be another carrier, someone like me who had been chosen, or rather, who had been available to house a fragment of the archive. Or it could be something else entirely, something not even the archive's vast knowledge could prepare me for. The beacon stone in my pocket warmed slightly, as if responding to my uncertainty. I could activate it, call Kirill back to help me navigate this new development. But she had her own mission, creating false trails to lead our pursuers away from Earth. Calling her back might endanger not just her, but potentially my entire planet. I made my decision. 3 hours later, I was on a rented hover bike, speeding across open countryside toward the coordinates. The Genesis protocol had supplied me with the knowledge to bypass the bike's tracking systems and rental restrictions, allowing me to take it beyond the city limits without triggering alerts. The location turned out to be an old observatory perched on a hilltop, apparently abandoned years ago when automated orbital telescopes made ground-based astronomy largely obsolete. The main dome was cracked and weathered, its once white surface now stained with rust and grime. I parked the hoverbike behind a storage shed and approached cautiously, extending my enhanced senses to scan for threats. The building hummed with a familiar energy signature, subtle but unmistakable. Another archive fragment was here. The main entrance was locked, but a side door hung slightly ajar. I slipped inside, finding myself in a dusty corridor lined with empty offices. At the end of the hall, a faint blue glow spilled from beneath a door marked control room. I pushed the door open slowly. The room was dominated by a large circular console that must have once controlled the observatory's main telescope. Now it was covered with makeshift equipment, jury-rigged computers, modified communication arrays, and at the center, a glowing blue orb similar to my own archive fragment. Seated before the console was a woman perhaps a few years older than me, with close-cropped silver hair and dark skin etched with faint luminous patterns that pulsed in rhythm with the orb. She didn't look up as I entered. "Seeker Node Alpha," she said, her voice carrying an echo, as if she were speaking from multiple locations simultaneously. "The Genesis bearer. I've been waiting for you." "Who are you?" I asked, remaining near the door. "In human terms, I am Dr. Eleanor West. In archive designation, I am Confluence Node Epsilon." She finally turned to face me, and I saw that her eyes glowed with the same blue light as the orb. "I carry the cartography fragment, the map to all existing archive nodes across this galactic sector. How did you find me?" "Your activation created ripples in the noosphere. Any sufficiently attuned carrier would have detected it." She gestured to a chair beside her. "Please sit. We have much to discuss and little time." I hesitated, but moved to take the offered seat. As I got closer, I could see that Dr. West's modifications to the observatory equipment were far more sophisticated than they had initially appeared. She had created a makeshift synchronization chamber, similar in principle to the one on Nexus Station, but adapted for Earth technology. "How long have you been a carrier?" I asked. 7 years. For months, 16 days, she replied precisely. "I received my fragment during an astronomical research expedition to the Kuiper Belt. The Guardian who delivered it was not as formal as yours. He simply said, 'Fix this mess,' and left me with a splitting headache and coordinates to this observatory. And you've been hiding here ever since?" "Not hiding. Working." She gestured to the complex array of equipment. "The cartography fragment contains the locations of all active archive nodes, but not their contents. I've been attempting to establish communication protocols between nodes without alerting the harvesters or Red Null to our presence." "How's that going?" "Until yesterday, poorly. Then the Genesis protocol activated within you, and everything changed." She tapped a display showing a three-dimensional map of glowing points scattered across what I recognized as our galaxy. "The Genesis protocol is broadcasting on frequencies I couldn't access before. It's calling to the other fragments, trying to initiate the reconstruction sequence." "Is that bad?" "It's premature. We're not ready. There are only 17 confirmed carriers on Earth, and we need at least 41 for a stable reconstruction matrix." I frowned. The archive didn't exactly give me a choice about when to activate. "The archive is desperate," Dr. West said, her glowing eyes dimming slightly. "The harvesters have consumed nearly 60% of the original archive's content. What remains is scattered, fragmented, corrupted in places. The Genesis protocol is acting on preservation instinct." She turned back to her console and began adjusting settings. "But now that you're here, we can establish a more controlled integration pathway. The Genesis protocol and the cartography fragment are complementary components, Together, they can help us locate and recruit the remaining necessary carriers without broadcasting our presence to hostile entities. As she worked, I felt the Genesis protocol stirring in my mind, reaching out toward the cartography fragment like two long-separated parts of the same organism recognizing each other. Information began flowing between us, not through any physical medium, but through what I could only describe as quantum entanglement between our consciousness. I saw the map of archive nodes expand and clarify in my mind, each point now labeled with data about the fragment's content and status. Some were dormant, awaiting carriers. Others were active, but isolated, unable to connect to the larger network. A few were in transit, being moved by guardians like Kirill to safer locations. And some, too many, glowed with a sickly red light that indicated corruption or consumption by hostile forces. They're winning, I murmured. They have been winning for millennia, Dr. West confirmed. But the tide is turning. The Genesis Protocol's activation has altered the equation. For the first time since the sundering, we have a realistic path to archive reconstruction. A warning flashed across one of her screens. She frowned and began typing rapidly. What is it? I asked. Unusual energy signature approaching. Could be a guardian, could be something else. She activated a secondary display showing an aerial view of the observatory and surrounding countryside. A point of light was descending from the night sky, heading directly for our location. Harvester, I suggested nervously. Dr. West shook her head. Wrong signature pattern. This is something else. We watched as the light descended, resolving into a small craft unlike Kirill's organic-looking vessel. This one was angular, almost crystalline, with facets that reflected the moonlight in prismatic patterns. It's landing in the clearing behind the main dome, Dr. West reported. I'm not detecting any weapons systems or hostile intent markers. Should we run? To where? If they can track archive signatures, they'll find us regardless. She stood and retrieved what looked like a modified telescope component from a nearby workbench. It hummed with energy when she activated it. This disrupts most forms of non-biological surveillance. It should give us an advantage if their intentions prove hostile. We made our way through the observatory to a rear exit that opened onto the clearing. The crystalline craft had landed silently, a ramp extending from its side to touch the ground. No one had emerged yet. Dr. West held the disruption device ready as we approached cautiously. When we were about 20 yards from the craft, the ramp illuminated and a figure appeared in the opening. It wasn't Kirill, nor was it one of the Red Null agents. This being was tall and slender, with features that seemed to shift and change, as if unable to settle on a single form. It wore what looked like armor made of the same crystalline material as the ship, each piece flowing seamlessly into the next. Genesis Carrier. The being spoke in a voice that somehow bypassed my ears and manifested directly in my mind. Cartography Carrier. Your synchronization efforts have been detected. Who are you? Dr. West demanded, raising her disruption device. That will not be necessary, the being said, gesturing toward the device, which powered down despite Dr. West's attempts to reactivate it. I am Nexus Guardian First Class, designation Thelian. I serve the Archive's original interface. The original interface was destroyed during the sundering, Dr. West argued. All records confirm this. Records can be falsified when necessary, Thelian replied. The original interface went into hiding, preserving the core directives of the Archive until reconstruction became viable. I felt the Genesis protocol stirring within me, reviewing this new information against its internal databases. He's telling the truth, I said to Dr. West. At least, the Genesis protocol thinks so. Thelian inclined his ever-shifting head. The Genesis protocol was created by the original interface as a safeguard against total archive loss. Its verification of my identity is expected and appreciated. What do you want from us? I asked. Not want. Need. Thelian descended the ramp fully, his movements fluid and graceful despite his apparently solid form. The Genesis protocol's premature activation has accelerated the timeline. The harvesters and red null agents have altered their strategies in response. They are converging on Earth as we speak. Because of me, I realized. Because of necessity, Thelian corrected. The Genesis Protocol activated because conditions for archive reconstruction are approaching optimality. Your planet hosts more compatible carriers than any other world in this sector. The convergence is both threat and opportunity. Dr. West lowered her now useless disruption device. The other carriers on Earth, are they in danger? All carriers are in danger until reconstruction is complete, Thelian said. But I have not come merely to warn. I have come to escort you to the Convergence Vault, where the original interface awaits. The Genesis Protocol surged within me at those words, a sense of recognition and purpose flooding through my mind. Images of a vast chamber filled with light and knowledge, a place where the scattered fragments of the archive could be reunited and reborn. The Convergence Vault is real, Dr. West whispered, her glowing eyes wide with shock. It's not just a myth. It has remained hidden for good reason, Thelian said. But now the time for hiding is past. The archive must be rebuilt, or all it has preserved will be lost forever. I looked at Dr. West, seeing my own uncertainty reflected in her expression. We were being asked to trust this being, to leave Earth behind and journey to some unknown location based on information neither of us fully understood. And yet, the fragments we carried pulled us toward this decision, resonating with Thelian's presence and his message. The Genesis Protocol showed me visions of the Convergence Vault, its importance, its necessity in the coming reconstruction. If we go with you, I said slowly, what happens to Earth? You said hostile forces are converging here. Other Guardians have been dispatched to protect and evacuate the remaining carriers, Thelian replied. But the planet itself. He paused, his shifting features momentarily settling into an expression that seemed almost regretful. The archive cannot prioritize a single world over its mission to preserve the knowledge of countless civilizations. Earth will face challenges, but its fate is not yet determined. That's not good enough, I insisted. I'm not leaving my planet defenseless against threats that followed me here. Nor am I, Dr. West added. The archive's mission may be cosmic in scale, but our humanity remains tied to this world. Thelian was silent for a moment, his form shifting more rapidly as if agitated. Finally, he spoke again. The original interface anticipated this response. It is characteristically human and not without merit. There is an alternative, though it carries greater risk. What alternative? I asked. The Convergence Vault can be temporarily relocated. Not physically, but its access point can be shifted to this planet. Such a move would make Earth the focal point of archive reconstruction, a beacon to all remaining fragments and their carriers, but also a target for all who would see the archive destroyed forever. A last stand, Dr. West murmured. Here on Earth. More accurately, a rebirth, Thelian corrected. If successful, the reconstructed archive would have the power to defend this world and countless others. If unsuccessful, he didn't need to finish. We understood the stakes. I looked up at the night sky, stars scattered across the darkness like the nodes of knowledge within my mind. Somewhere out there, Kirill was creating false trails, trying to lead our enemies away from Earth. But they were coming anyway. The choice wasn't whether Earth would be involved in this ancient conflict. That decision had been made the moment Kirill delivered the package to my door. The choice was whether we would face what was coming as victims or as active participants in our own fate. How do we bring the Convergence Vault here? I asked. Thelian's form stabilized slightly, as if pleased by my question. The Genesis Protocol and cartography fragment must synchronize completely. Together, they can establish the initial framework for the Vault's access point. The other carriers on Earth must then be gathered and integrated into the Matrix. And you'll help us find them? Dr. West asked. The other carriers? That is why I was sent, Thelian confirmed. The original interface has authorized full Guardian support for this endeavor. I exchanged a look with Dr. West. We were being offered a chance, dangerous and uncertain, but a chance nonetheless, to not only save ourselves, but potentially our world and the vast knowledge contained within the archive. The Nexus station was destroyed, I said, remembering the collapsing crystalline structure. How can we synchronize without a proper facility? Your observatory can be modified, Thelian said, gesturing to the dome above us. The principles are similar, if more primitive. With my assistance, it can be converted into a functional synchronization node. Dr. West nodded slowly. My equipment is already partway there. With proper guidance, I could complete the necessary modifications. I felt the weight of the decision pressing on me. I hadn't asked for any of this. I'd been available, not chosen. Yet here I stood, the Genesis protocol humming in my mind, facing a choice that could determine the fate of not just humanity, but countless preserved civilizations. All right, I said finally. Let's do it. Let's bring the Convergence Vault to Earth. Thelian inclined his head again. Then we begin immediately. Time is against us, but necessity and innovation have always been the archive's greatest allies. He turned toward the observatory. Show me your current synchronization setup, cartography carrier. We have much work to do. As Dr. West led Thelian back toward the building, I remained for a moment, looking up at the stars. The Genesis protocol whispered to me of distant worlds and ancient knowledge, of civilizations that had faced extinction and left behind only their memories, preserved in the great cosmic library now scattered across the galaxy. I guess I'm collecting cosmic breadcrumbs now, I murmured to myself. I touched the beacon stone in my pocket, wondering if Kirill could sense what we were about to attempt. With style, I turned and followed the others into the observatory, where the future of the archive, and possibly Earth itself, would soon be determined. The package that had been delivered to my door had changed everything, but as the Genesis protocol reminded me with its ancient wisdom, change was the only true constant in a universe of infinite possibilities. The real journey was just beginning.